Welcome to the Footballers Football Show. Joining me today is Tam McManus and our special guest, Michael Tidser. Well, Michael, obviously it's been a tough couple of months for you. How difficult has that been?
Listen, it's been really difficult. I feel like my life's kind of been turned upside down. For going from part-time being a player and a manager to then full-time, and obviously the inevitable, getting the sack. It's been difficult, but it's a major learning curve for me.
And with that, you obviously speak about a learning curve. Did you think you would learn so much in obviously such a short space of time? I don't think a lot. I know there'll be restrictions. There's a lot you can't say when you leave a club, and clubs have these things in place. So, in terms of that learning curve for the future, I think it's going to help you and take you on to the next level.
No, listen, it's a good question. As you say, there's. I think the biggest thing for me was, the opportunity to go to Dunfermline was an opportunity I couldn't turn down, especially at 35 years of age. But listen, I'll place it on record. It's a fantastic club, real good people, and with Lennon getting in there, I'm sure he'll get a tune out the lads, and performance-wise they'll pick up, and hopefully it's enough to keep them in the league. But in terms of myself, no, I certainly learned a lot, and going forward in the future, I think it will stand me in good stead.
I think a lot of people don't realise about you obviously taking the Dunfermline job is how much a key figure you were in terms of playing at Kelty. So actually the fact you having to park your playing career, and obviously successful spells at Morton, and you went down south, Ross County, and then back at Kelty, obviously winning leagues. How hard was that to? Because I think me and Tam will both agree, a club like Dunfermline comes in as a young manager, you see the setup, it's one you can't say no to, but not having the time to kind of quit your playing career on your terms, how difficult was that?
Well, listen, when you're a young boy playing football, you first of all you want to have a career, but then naturally 90% of players will tell you they want to stay in the game. So for me to get the Kelty job, I think I was 33 when I got it, 33, 34, and I love playing. You obviously know you were in the building, you were there. I feel like I made an impact there as a player, and then slowly I was getting the club going in terms of a manager. So I think the hardest part probably got to Dunfermline was I had to give up my football career, albeit it's been a short spell, so I've kept myself relatively fit. But listen, I'm pleased with how my career went. Of course, you want to try and do better, but if you asked me this at 8, 9, 10 years of age, I would have had a bit of the hand off you for what I kind of had done in terms of games, what I played, and bigger stadiums and certain things that you achieve, personal goals. So no, it was hard giving up my career, but it's something I could always try and go back, and I've had a few. I don't know. I've had a few offers over the last couple of weeks, but it's coming to the end of the season, Scotty, and it's one of the ones where I'll probably just see the season out, and then reassess in the summer, get myself fit mentally, physically, and see where I can then.
How did you adapt for going for coaching at part-time level, a couple of nights a week on a Saturday, then going every day at Dunfermline?
The thing is, Tam, that I was so used to being full-time as a player, so it was when I went to Kelty, that was my first spell part-time, albeit I was 30. The difference is you're on the grass every day, so you can kind of try and implement with your ideas. Albeit when I went to Dunfermline, there was only a quarter of the games to go, so I knew it would have been difficult. But at part-time level, it's different, as you'll know. Did you play part-time, Tam?
I didn't. No, not towards the end.
It's different because you only get the lads a couple of nights a week. They've been working long shifts, and it's about the difference with that is it's about keeping them on their toes, making sure training's good, high tempo. And I felt I got that at Kelty, but then when I went to Dunfermline, it's slightly different because you can then work on different aspects and who you're playing against, and so that's probably the difference. But as I say, I was always full time, so I missed that for the 4 or 5 years I was away. Once you get it back, it brings you back to life again. But albeit it was a short spell, but something I look back and it was an opportunity that I couldn't really turn down. So it's happened, it's gone, and it's time to draw a line and move on for it now.
I think obviously just taking it back to the start of the season, obviously Kelty, me obviously being a part of that as well, and the kind of team and the kind of real attacking style that you brought to Kelty. What would you say the differences were in the job at Kelty to Dunfermline? Out with the part-time situation?
Well, I think the biggest difference is you're going into a team where there's a squad already built, whereas at Kelty, every single player that came through the building, or in the door, I'd signed them. So I kind of knew their character. You do your homework, you speak to them, you meet them for a coffee, and you get to know them as people as well.
Play to suit how you want to play.
Of course, the way I wanted to play in the 4-3-3, and I knew the type of players I wanted to bring in, and you know, we started the season ever so well. You know, we're flying high. You managed to beat Hibs in the Premier Sports Cup at the start of the season. And it just kind of had a momentum built for there. But as you say, the opportunity to go was probably too big to turn down. But listen, I look back in my time at Kelty with really good memories. First of all, as a player, and then when Fergie came in, I was captain, and then to go on and manage a club as well. It's something that I'll never really forget. And you know, it's a great club with good people, and you know, I just wish them every success. You know, going into the business end of the season.
You touched on obviously Barry Ferguson there. What was Barry Ferguson like to work with?
No, listen, you know, he's doing ever so well just now at Rangers, and I kind of half expected that for him, to be fair, because he's hands on, he's very intense. He probably.
Do you think the level of pressure suits someone like Barry Ferguson's personality and because of the kind of career he had at Rangers?
Well, that's it. If there's anybody that's been and done it, it's him, innit? He's captained them, he's captained his country, he's been to finals in Europe, the expectation, he's won trebles at Rangers, he knows what to expect, he's played in big European games, so it's different as a player when you then become the manager because everything's then on you. I know he would have felt that as a captain, but he still had Walter Smith there, he still had Dick Advocate there, good managers take that pressure away from the players. So knowing Fergie as I do for the couple of years I worked with him, he'll enjoy that, he'll thrive off that. And then you can probably see the performance and the results, you know, great result in Europe, got to Parkhead winning as well. That's a massive statement, you know, and he's probably gave himself a fighting chance to, you know, be the manager of Rangers going forward over the next couple of years.
A thing that I've heard of players who have played under Barry Ferguson over the years is how actually good he was to his players. He kind of took all the excuses away. You'd have all the best of gear, and I think a lot of the time he put his hand in his own pocket for that.
No, listen, I loved him. I couldn't, you know, I grew up a Celtic fan, and Barry Ferguson to me was...
Did they have his orange motor at Kelty? Just get that when he became a Rangers manager?
I can't remember what he drove at the time, but it was very intense on the training pitch, all the small details, and I'm a wee bit like that myself, the small things would annoy him, and he would let you know. But what I will say, the team we had at Kelty, we were obviously low in league, and then Kevin Thompson came in, we went back to back into League One. But I love working with him. I just love the demands he set on players, and he also had a good experienced squad at the time. And you know, thankfully we managed to. I think it was a COVID year, and we managed to get up, play Brecon, and we managed to beat them over 2 legs, and you know, make Kelty a SPFL club. So you know, he done ever so well there, and you know, he's been out of the game for a while. But when I seen him going back at Rangers, you know, I had a wee wry smile at myself because I know how good he is. It'd be interesting to see how he'd work with these type of players, but he's a Rangers man through and through, and I'm sure over time he's let the players know the standards and the demands are what's expected at clubs like Celtic and Rangers.
See, in terms of Kelty and obviously Dunfermline, Kelty, you were winning most games at the start of the season, then going to the Dunfermline team that was struggling. Dunfermline are a big club, I played with them myself, I know how a big club they are. The expectation levels when you went to Dunfermline, you know, supporters maybe grumbling during the games or after games. How did you cope with that? Because I know towards the end I wasn't at the games, but it was a wee bit starting to get a wee bit, you know, touchy in terms of the supporters and all that. How did you deal with that side of it? I
try to protect the players from it, to be honest with you, Tam. You know, I've been there myself as a player, and you know, down at Caplo was a tough crowd, irrespective of whether you're in the league. So I knew when I went into the job, I try to protect the players from that and give them that confidence to go and play. Listen, the crowd, that's the. Every club you're at, you need the fans, and what I will say about them is they were always earning their numbers, they always supported the lads, and you know, like anything, and I'm the same myself, we're all football fans at times when you're watching the game and everybody's got an opinion, whether it's Celtic, whether it's Real Madrid, whether it's Liverpool, we all see the game differently. But what I will say is that, you know, they always supported us, and in the tough times I understood it, I go to it, and it falls on me because I'm the manager. But what I always try to do is protect the players, but also, you know, they know the demands of the club. They've been there under James McPake, they've been there under myself, and they'll be there under Neil Lennon. So, no change, and all the fans want to see is, you know, a fairly committed team. You know, try to win games, and you know, for certain games, you know, we had that, and then other times we probably lacked that real cutting edge and that real belief. So it was something I try to get into them. And it's difficult, especially when the games come thick and fast and you're looking at the table and you're no winning against your Airdries, you're no winning against your Hamiltons. That's when the pressure really comes. But as you can probably see now, you know, with Lenny getting in, they're good players. It was just about trying to
lack of confidence.
Lack of confidence. And we've all been there. It's, you know, sometimes a 5-yard pass, so simple, and you end up, you can't make it. And you start when that's one player, 2 players, and then before you know it, 5 or 6. And you know, it was a big change in January as well. There was a lot of players brought in as well. So I think that maybe, for a short spell, you know what it's like when players come in and we had a few injuries. And I know it sounds like an excuse,
but it is quite a big number to come in, even in, especially a January transfer window, because historically January transfer windows don't always hit the ground running. So I think
you get a lot of players that have not been playing and are not fit.
Yeah.
I've always found in January, if you're signing a player, they're either not wanted at the previous club or they're wanting not been playing. Do you know?
That's a high volume of players to come into a squad who'd obviously been to get a lot of that squad came through in League One, and then obviously new boys coming in. So you've got a job in your hands in itself. And
no, definitely.
In that case, do you think it's a different remit for Neil Lennon?
I think for Lennon, I can't speak for Lennon because I don't know the ins and outs now. You know, as I say, I draw a line in the sand with it. But what I will say is survive on it. No matter how you do it, no matter if you win the games pretty, no matter if you win the games scrappy, it's about winning games and staying in the league, because a club like Dunfermline to go back to League One would, you know, financially it'd be a big hit, but also, you know, having to do a full season in League One again. You know, I think the club have got a plan, they've got a vision, a 2-3 year vision to try and get to the SPL. I think the most important thing now is the fundamentals are stay in the league and then try and build next season. And I'm sure, you know, that's Lenny's remit.
Your principles as a manager, you stuck with them. You obviously had them at Kelty. You tried to take them into Dunfermline. Was there ever a point where you thought, I'm not getting results here, I need to go kind of nasty, I need to go different, I need to maybe go 2 up front or play 5 at the back or sacrifice your own principles as a manager?
This is going to come across as kind of arrogant, but I didn't want to change because I genuinely believe longevity, that's the way you'll... And if I'm trying to sign a player or the club are trying to bring a player in, I think you can then look at specifics and what you're needing. Whereas if you chop and change between a 3, a 4, a 4-4-2, or whatever, 3-5-2, I always try to stick to the 4-3-3 with tweaks in that. Damn, you know, at times we did go 2 up. So I remember seeing an interview with Ange Postecoglou, and something that always stuck with me. He says that football always try and change you. And it did. There was loads of times that I thought about it, but I tried to stick to what I knew, because over the 18 months at Kelty, I seen results, I seen how it worked. You'll know you were party at the start of the season when you're going to Queen's South and winning 5-1.
You definitely seen performances with the results, which I think as any manager, especially a young manager, that's what gets you the job in the first place. Yeah,
as I say, at the time at the start of the season, obviously beating Hibs, you know, going down to Queen's South winning 5-1, gone to Abrupt, who arguably won League One, gone well and winning 3-0, beating them at home. So that was all based on our systems and how we wanted to play. But again, when I'm getting into a new club, that's probably where I probably shot myself a wee bit in the foot, where because I signed the players and I'm getting into a club with the players already, that's try to, you know, square pegs and round holes at times, and that's probably my biggest takeaway. That's my biggest learning curve, that, you know, trying to
play a system that suits the players you've got.
Yeah, and then added that in with players coming in and then players injured, and you end up getting it. You try to find a recipe that works, and you know, at times we did. You know, we beating Morton.
10 men.
Yeah, you know, there was times where the boys dug deep and, you know, dug us out a hole. And
Raith Rovers
at home as well. Obviously Steny at the start, and then we had difficult games against Aberdeen. I think that probably the ones that your Airdrie away, my first game, and Hamilton away. Losing them because they were so close to us. I think that's the one that you then feel the pressure. But I genuinely firmly believe, and I've said this to you privately, that, and it's easy to say now that I'm out, but I know the squad's good enough to stay in that division, and you know, I've no doubt Lenny will keep them up.
What was the biggest differences from playing to managing?
I think when you're playing, you know, you're focused, you're in a zone, aren't you, and you do your job, you try and help.
After yourself, really. You know.
See, to be fair to him, I never really, he'll tell you, I always tried to, that was probably something at Kelty.
Some more attacking players.
I always try to...
I had 14 clubs.
I always try to look after the players around about me, and I think that was when I was player manager at Kelty, I could do that. I could help the younger ones, or even just your voice and that experience of knowing when to hook it on, knowing when to stick it down a channel, knowing when to play, knowing when the pressure's coming, when I fouled, all the wee things. Whereas as a manager, when you're at the side of the pitch and there's 5,000 fans, you can't.
Yeah.
Your work's done from Monday to Friday.
The player manager one's interesting because it's not often we see it successful. At times, obviously, a lot of coaches who do it very quickly bring themselves out of the team. But you were still a big influence on the pitch, no question. And when you did obviously come out of the team, results maybe weren't the same. Is that part of the fact you could affect the things you would see from the side of the park on the park at that time?
Yeah, I think I remember speaking to Jim Goodwin about this when we managed to get a couple of lads for United on loan, and he said that when he was at Alloa he had to, he couldn't do both, whereas I actually felt really comfortable doing both. I probably missed not playing when I was being a manager, if that makes sense. Because I felt that I could still influence the game in some respect, whether that was my voice, whether that was technically or tactically on the pitch. But no, listen, it is what it is. You know, I enjoy playing, but I also really love managing. But the work's usually done. If I knew I wasn't going to play at Kelty, you'd expect your experienced ones, your Tam Wares, yourself, to help with kind of a younger group. Your Scott Mercers at the time, your CJs, they would help with kind of a younger ones when you won the playing. And you know, we got results and we just built confidence as the season went on.
What would you say is the best bit of advice that you've received, whether that's playing, in fact maybe go both, from a playing side of it, then obviously onto a manager's side of it?
I think I've gone back to playing it, you know, even as a young kid coming kind of through at Celtic, you know, Tommy Burns was a big influence on all the lads there. Whether that goes for myself, and I remember him always saying to me, you know, never change you as a person, whether he liked me as a person. I remember he dropped me off one time up at my mum's and just off Duke Street, and I remember him saying to me, look, don't change. And I never really knew, I was only young, I was only 12, 13, and I thought, I wonder what he's talking about, but he's just probably meaning my personality, and I love talking to him about the game. I love asking him old questions about old players and the Lisbon Lions, and he loved that. So for that respect, as a player, I never really try to change. As a manager, listen, I've spoke to loads of managers since I became one, and everybody's journey is different. People always tell you different things, but there's a big pressure. There's a bigger pressure being a manager than as a player. That's without doubt, because you carry the can for everything. Whereas when you're on the pitch, you've got teammates, you've got subs, you've got staff that can help you. When you're a manager, it can be a lonely place. But again, as I touched on, it will try and change you at times. But I try to stick to my beliefs for what I knew. Listen, it didn't work out, but that certainly won't put me off in the future. You know, try to get myself back in somewhere.
Because I think even before you obviously been approached for the Dunfermline job, obviously filed in the National League in England, they had approached you to try and obviously get you down there. What was that like, that experience? Because it wasn't as if it was just Dunfermline. There's a lot of clubs obviously looking at what you'd built at Kelty, obviously performance wise, and then the style of play as well.
Yeah.
Gathered with results and the recruitment as well. What was that experience like?
The experience going down to Fylde, that was, you know, an interesting one. Just got a phone call and, you know, they wanted to speak to me. So I went down, kind of done an interview process, a presentation, just kind of explained how I see the game and, you know, clips of, like my Kelty team. And Davy Moyes was actually in the interview, and he was first class, real, you know, a real gentleman, you know, and gave you good advice and helped me. But listen, for whatever reason, you know, I think it didn't really happen. But again, great experience for me, Scotty, because you just go for playing to then sitting in front of different people, whether it's board members, whether it's, you know, director of footballs, Davy Moyes, who I didn't know. You know, I know he's a Glasgow boy, but you just know him as Everton manager, Man United manager. So, you know, he gave me loads of wee bits of advice that I came back up the road with. And then obviously the Dunfermline thing, you know, kind of I came out of the blue with the new owners coming in. You know, it was a shot in the arm for me, really, because it shows you that people are watching part-time football in Scotland, and, you know, they see something in how you play and how you see the game. So, no, listen, it's, as I say, a shot in the arm for me, and an experience that I'll certainly learn, because I'm still young. You know, we all want to stay in football, but it just shows you can go for having interviews and getting jobs to, and then bump, you're done. That's football. And, you know, I try to explain that to my two young boys who are football daft, that it's a ruthless business. It's ruthless, and
that's not an easy conversation with them after.
No, of course it's not. Listen, my kids were visibly upset. They're crying their eyes out and worried about their dad and what's going to happen. But, you know, the experiences you get as a player leading up to that, it's par for course at times, and it's never easy. But, you know, it's something you need to take in the chin, and you quickly dust yourself down, and you need to then try and focus on another challenge and see what's out there, and hopefully doors can open.
As management 24/7, we speak to managers and they say, you know, you can't switch off. Was it the same with you? At weekend after a game, could you go home, just go for a meal with your missus, if win, lose or draw? Or was it, if you won, you were more entitled to go out for something to eat? If you lost, you were just sitting in a dark room?
Oh, still going for the meal, but still thinking about it.
No, honestly, Tam, it's
all consuming.
Constant. From the moment you open your eyes on the Monday morning to the following Monday, and that's win, lose or draw, whether that's training sessions, whether that's dealing with players, whether that's dealing with board members, and then ultimately it's a Saturday. That's all that matters. So you want to win games naturally, but when you don't get the result you want, it constantly plays in your mind. It's hard to relax. But I was like that as a player, but I was probably worse as a manager, because again, as I've touched on, you carry the can for the football club. You're constantly on the phone. You're speaking to my assistant. different people in the game that you trust and try to get wee bits of advice. So no, it's full on, but again, I wouldn't change it for the world. I wouldn't. I've had different jobs when I was part time, and my whole life's consumed by football and how I can get better and try and learn and as I say, speak to experienced pros and people that have been in the game longer than me, and just get wee nuggets of advice here and there, and ask them how they went about their business. But I think if you ask most people in football, especially management, it's a tough industry, but it's one we love in it, and it's that adrenaline, it's that wanting to win, that will to win, which has never left me from I was a kid to now. So we'll see what happens next.
Greenock Morton, what is it about Morton that you loved so much?
Listen, I spent a long time down there. I think it was 8 years over 2 spells, Scotty, and it kind of came out of the blue actually. So I was out in Sweden playing. Billy Reid managed to get him out there.
Yeah.
And I was out there for 6 months just before Graham Potter came in. It was actually Lee Michael, you remember? Did you play Max?
Yeah, played against him at Hearts.
So he was the manager. Out there for 6 months, and that was really good. Ostersons.
Did they have British owner? What was the connection with getting all this? Because I know obviously Potter and Reid and then Michael. Was there some sort of British agent or British owners?
I don't actually know, to be honest with you. It was
a few Scottish players went over and played with them as well, weren't there?
No, there was a few English lads as well. I don't know if you remember wee Freddie Bakary that played with Meat Morton.
Yep.
He went over and they ended up playing Arsenal in Europa League.
That's right.
I don't know what the connection was, but it was Billy had mentioned it to me, and the owner at the time, I think he might still be there, Daniel Kinberg his name is, and I flew out, I seen the place, and I thought, you know what, been in Glasgow now, came through Celtic, released, don't really know my next opportunity, and then that came out of the blue, and it was the best decision I ever made. I was out living my own, adapting to a new country, new culture, albeit 6 months, but opened my eyes up. And then what had happened was, touching back in Morton, I'd actually played against Morton in a friendly for Scotland 19s before the Euros, down at Capello, and it was like me, Johnny Russell, John Fleck, Lee Griffiths, Danny Wilson we touched on. We had a good team, and we played. You were injured.
Nah, I didn't get killed up.
You wouldn't have gotten to that one. A few good midfielders. So what had happened was we played a friendly, and James Grady was the manager at the time, him and Big Chalky Alan McManus, and they'd got wind that I came back to Scotland and asked me to go and train, and then it just kind of a snowball for there. That was going back 2010 maybe, and back then the change room was proper men. Proper men, your Peter Weathersons, your Big Stuart Grecians, Alan Jenkins.
Did you stay up in the last game of the season against United?
Yeah, we did.
I was at United, they went down. I was injured for that game.
Gowser was playing as well, wasn't he?
Aye, Gowser was
Graham
playing.
Kenny?
Graham Carey was it there as well?
No, sorry, it wasn't he. Danny Lafferty, left back.
Danny Lafferty, aye. I don't know, I can't remember, but...
Whoever won stayed.
Aye. I was injured.
Did you go?
I was injured, I was at the game, aye. Junior Mendes scored first at United, and then you come back and win 2-1 and we get relegated.
Junior Mendes.
That's right.
Anyway, sorry.
So that was my first proper season it took me 6 months to adapt to it. See, coming from Lennoxtown every day, proper, you get all the balls, you get everything done for you, lunch, you name it, training's perfect, all the mannequins, and then you go to real life football where you're on it for your like you're in it together.
Dan just touched on, if you don't win, you're down.
Aye. And that was a pressure then. I thought,
that's as cutthroat as that from the get-go.
So my time at Morton was brilliant. The first 4 years, then obviously got a move down south, and then coming back again. It's a good club, and we played them a couple of weeks ago, albeit we beat them. But it's a club that I've always been affection for. Dougie's doing a fantastic job down there, I must say. Him and Andy Millen have been first class, with the restrictions and budgets. People talk about it, but
I've not got a lot of money, have they?
No, I know firsthand they've not got a lot of money, but they keep churning out results and players, and they lost 3 of their best players last year, and Muirhead Oakley and Robbie Crawford, so that took a lot of... Yep. But he came again, and he obviously last week is probably... with Thistle beating them, I think that's probably nailed them on 4th place, but for the season they've been first class, and it's credit to Dougie and his staff.
Your time at Morton, obviously the first 4 years, any managers stick out for you?
Alan Moore, Murray was my gaffer for him and Mark McNally were there, and they were great for me. I think they made me captain when I was 21 maybe, with experienced players running about me, and that was interesting at the time. They obviously had a lot of belief in me, and over that 3-year spell, we came really close to getting to the Premier League. The year Thistle came up under Alan Archibald, they were a real good side to be fair, but we went ham on tongue with them that season. It was always 4 really good games. And they kind of pipped us with 3 or 4 games to... I say pipped us, they deserved to win the league, they were a better side. So we were unfortunate in that, and then the following year I ended up, it was the end of that season, I ended up moving on down south to Rotherham.
Steve Evans.
Steve Evans.
Oh my God.
Any good Steve Evans stories?
He signed me for Boston United, I know, he just gets sacked for the Rotherham Aye. He's an absolute nutcase.
Did he get sacked again?
He just gets sacked for Rotherham Aye.
Yeah.
Last week.
Nutcase, I've played under 15, 20 managers, without a doubt, unhinged, man. Nutcase.
Aye.
Any good stories?
He was ruthless, mate. He was ruthless. He was.
Two, you can give us some
remember-
stories. Steve Evans one.
I remember we played Rochdale in the, I think it was a FA Cup. It must have been FA Cup. It was FA Cup because there's a story to this. And I'd been in and out, and I was starting, and we were playing at home at the New York Stadium, and I got sent off. 60 minutes, 2 yellows. Second one was a lunge on a boy, Matty Lund. Do you remember him?
Yeah.
He a good player. And he just nicked it away from me, and I stuck the left leg out. Caught him. Anyway, I'm in, got 1-0 on and got beat 2-1.
Oh, no.
And I know it's coming. So I can see him. So I'm standing in the dugout, and I'm just peering out, and he's got to be clawing, and he always does that, doesn't he?
Aye.
So he's walking, and he's sweating. I thought, I'm getting it here. And sure enough, he comes in, he's walking about right there, mate. And I mean, he's spitting on my face. The sweat's pouring down his face, and he's saying, I can't swear, can I? But I won't. He's like, you don't know what the FA Cup means to these lads down here. Because you've faced Scotland, you don't have a clue. You've killed a lad. Murdered me, mate. Murdered me. Had to take it. And to be fair, as soon as he walked out, the lads are like, weekend off, and whatever day it was, he's like, boys are booking a weekend away and stuff like that. Usual, you know what it's like in change rooms. But I felt bad, but it could come for you.
Oh, well, when I was at Boston United, we played Shrewsbury, and we're about the playoffs. We're 2-0 up with 10, 15 minutes to go, and I come off 2-0 sitting on the bench, and I was going up the road to that. I was only a boy, I was at loan for Hibs. I was going back up, he'd said to me, listen, get yourself back up the road, see you on Tuesday. So I'm 21, I think, I could be out on Saturday night, I'm up the road for 11. Anyway, 2-0, I played well, I'm sitting going, everything's gone great. They scored 2 late goals, like 90 and 95, 2 each. Come in, goalkeeper, you can go. You can go. Say your agent, see you later. Austin McCann, left back.
Yeah,
phone your agent, way up back over to Scotland. Pish, can't defend. 2 centre-halves, big guy Greg Strong, and another guy, you two are transfer listed, right? But full back, full goalie in the transfer list, go. Right, so I'm still thinking to myself, I wonder.
Am I getting up the road?
Right, so I left it.
You know it's coming, don't
I
you?
left it, so I'm about 5:30, I'm like, right, fuck it, I'm back up the road. So I was in and chaps the door. Him and Paul Rayner, was Rayner there? Rains
was there, aye.
Paul opened the door and just chopped and Steve Evans went, no, you're in the fucking Mora. Right, ran the boys round the track. The boys that played 90 minutes ran us on a Sunday. And double session, all the guys trained. Fucking maniac, man. Honestly, I'm not joking.
A few times. We played Man. If you didn't play first team the Saturday, you always played a bounce game the Tuesday.
Aye.
We played Man United at Carrington, and they went strong, really strong. Like
We've done the same thing with Birmingham.
Remember the 2 twin brothers, the Brazilians, Makeda played, I think, Welbeck, all these sort of boys. I can't remember who the manager was, and he was standing at the side and he was barking orders. I think Davy Moyes was the manager at the time, and I think Scholes and maybe
Nicky Butt
Butt
used to help
and
out.
I could see him looking down and he's screaming, mate. And it's a resi game, so there's nobody about, and he's screaming. We're supposed to be off, and I was parked and ready to come out of Glasgow. I think we had 2 or 3 days off. Brought us in, mate.
Aye.
Brought us in, aye.
For a resi game against Man U.
Got beat 4-3. Daniel Nardiello scored a hat-trick, and they scored late on to beat us 4-3 in a bounce game, meaningless bounce game. And they brought us in, aye. 3 days we were supposed to have. I was already had a wee bag packed to come out of Glasgow.
Aye. Oh, fucking, there you go.
I know.
There you go.
But again, look, listen, being on the other side and managing.
And he's actually had a decent
His
career
results
managing.
incredible.
Yeah, he's done well.
Which I find astonishing the way
But he gets the best out of players.
Aye.
He does. He's what is
He
it?
must be doing something right.
8 or 9 promotion. Don't get me wrong, he's clever. He picks, his budgets are always huge for whatever division it is. But if he's earned that.
Yeah, he has.
I mean, he's earned that to pick the club. So, real character. Very unassuming. That's probably the word I would use. From one day he'd walk by, say a word, next day he'd ask you about your family, next day he'd talk about Celtic.
He was very,
Aye, Jekyll and Hyde.
He'd be a really nice guy and then just mental.
Aye.
So did you get up the road now?
No. Gaza was there. Paul Gascoigne was there.
He was in for a bit, wasn't he?
Was it Boston?
Was Willie Gibson there too?
There's no way.
Willie Gibson there at the time?
No, it was Austin McCann, Andy Kirk striker. Hearts. Again, Boston United, he's talking about budgets, mate. They were mint it. I think they don't know if they went bust, but
At that time?
oh, serious though. I come down on loan for Hibs, mate, and they were paying my wages, my parents' money, everything.
Did you enjoy it there?
Boston? No, it was fucking horrific.
Was it?
Horrific. No offence to anybody at Boston, but
At the time, I think in January.
I was at Rotherham as well, because
you were quite close to Sheffield, but it's not too bad.
Did you? It was like a 1980s training ground, wasn't it?
Roundwood, was it? Roundwood Golf
Roundwood,
Club,
yeah. Horrible changing rooms, freezing cold, and then you'd need to walk by
We got promoted to Championship.
Did you?
At Wembley, I had been out on loan. I'd went to Ross County, so I ended up just travelling with the squad, but with the suit and that on at Wembley.
There for a night out?
There for the night. Well, in saying that, that's something. I don't know if you met many nights out down there. Did you go out with the Boston lads, no?
Mostly not.
Well, you were down there. I felt the English lads were, as soon as the game was done, bumped away. Even when we got promoted, mate, I remember Tav was in his Tav was he was playing that day as well, and I remember there was only about 6 or 7 that was out in London that night.
After getting promoted to the Championship?
I thought, well, he's gone. Come on out, man.
Do you know what I mean? That ain't happening here, is it?
But again, no, here you're out for squad. You're out straight to Benidorm, aren't you?
It's a free day and boys will be on their medals.
Aye. But Stevie Evans, I certainly learned a lot from him. How not to be.
Aye, he's it. Best game of football you've been at, not played in?
Good question. As a fan?
Aye.
Celtic v Rangers at Ibrox, 3-2. Edward last minute. Cut inside Tommy Goss, remember? Bent it. Remember it?
Down to 10 men?
Down to 10 men.
The best game you've been?
Aye. Cal McGregor plays it at Dunfermline. He finds it in the corner.
I'll Scotty that one.
No, that's not going to help me at all.
That was... I think that was one of the last times with allocation, I think, maybe as well. So Celtic took that full back stand, didn't he?
Aye.
And that was unbelievable. But that's just as a Celtic fan. There's obviously big Champions League nights and that as well, weren't there? And what about yours? You're not answer this.
Champions League final. Champions League finals. Chelsea Bayern was good.
Get that at the game?
That I was at Barca Juventus Pirlo's last game in Berlin, Scotland.
See, I never really went to anything other than Celtic, really. Do you know what I mean?
Aye.
What about you?
Best game I've been at and never played in.
What do you mean, atmosphere and just...
No, just the one that sticks
Celtic
out.
Barcelona.
Aye, see that?
Tony Watt one?
No, it was Alan Thompson scored.
Oh, I remember.
1-0. I think they went away from home and David Marshall the worldie.
Aye, that's
And
right.
they drew 0-0. I can't remember if it was the first leg or second leg.
Just
It was
for atmosphere.
the first
Oh,
leg. wasn't it?
aye.
First leg. Then
Was it
big John Kennedy played, didn't he?
Aye,
He was only
Aye, that was incredible. And Barcelona started with Ronaldinho and all that.
That's right. I do remember that.
10, 12, 14 or 16 team top league.
I've been hearing it and listening and reading it. I wouldn't go to 10. I don't think.
There's far too much pressure on managers as it is.
I know.
Can you imagine a 10 team? There'd be more than half
I've
the
not
team would
heard
be fighting
anybody
relegation.
say they want 10.
I've heard a few people saying go back to the old days, which I believe was 10, 10, 10, 10, 2 up, 2 down.
What do you think?
No playoffs.
Would we have played in that then? Was that...
No, we
I
didn't.
think it was maybe 80s or 90s.
No.
That was the SFL at that time.
Aye,
wasn't it?
aye. I don't know about that.
So say that again. 10,
10, 10, 10, 10, 2 go up, 2 go down.
Aye,
No
just
playoffs.
To be fair, I think the playoffs add something though, don't they?
Aye, I keep the playoffs.
They add something because if...
Something to play for.
Because if you're in the middle of the park and you know you can chase it, whereas if...
You were the same, you were at Morton minute, and I was probably at Falkirk or Dundee. If you were 4th or 5th in February,
Aye, you've got
season was
flip-flops
done.
on it, yeah.
You'd no chance of going up and down, there was no playoffs.
And then you couldn't lose your job with that as well because
Aye.
if players
No,
then
there's
you
that-
lose your last 5 games because of
Aye.
that to play for, I want to go, not playing for that manager, whereas
Aye.
there is actually...
It's always something to play for.
prize money in there, obviously, on the other side of it, but...
I'm going to go 14. I would go 14 to 14 teams, an extra 2.
What, 2
many
teams
league then?
automatically done and then won the playoff?
14, 10, 10.
Aye.
It's the 3 leagues in.
Listen, the biggest problem, Scotty, in it, sorry Tam, is the old firm in it. They need to get the 4 games in for Sky to keep, ploughing that money in.
But
I think they would like a 10-10, a 10-team to League Y.
I think
because
this
there's no
is why
fixture congestion.
This is why there's came fair.
Aye,
This
there's
is
no
why
fixture
they're at this
congestion.
point.
Aye.
But not for me. The 10 teams. I think you want to evolve the game better. Listen, we speak about young players all the time in this show, and I think going to 10 would really.
Managers would be terrified to put them because the pressure would be incredible.
What do you think we could do better in this country for
No,
just young players?
we've spoken
If they're good enough,
We've spoken about
the
it.
main thing. They have to be good enough, but there has to be
It's hard.
There has
isn't
to
it?
be opportunity at the same time.
Of course there is. But if you go and put in 3 or 4 kids and they're constantly getting beat because you need to learn the game, so you can maybe drip feed 1, maybe 2. It depends what age you are. If you're talking about for 17 to 19, but I mean, what's young? Is 19 still young? Because people in England are, maybe played 50, 60.
Do you think 19's young?
I would have when we were playing.
No.
No.
No, I don't either.
I don't either.
I think if you're at a bigger club and you've not played by 19, the first team, you're not going to play.
You're in trouble.
At that club, and you need to get out.
I think if you're good enough at a club, at 17, 18, you'll get a sniff. You're going to get a sub. You'll get in and about it. I think if you're out on loan and then you come back 19, 20, and you've not played for the first team, you're not going to play for them.
No.
That's why I see all these young guys at Celtic and Rangers going out on loan, coming back 19, 20, never played a game, and they've still got a year left at Celtic, and you're thinking.
It's funny you say that, Tam, because see when I got released at 19, I remember I'm trying to think who was still there. Like wee Caddis, that was playing, but there was Caddis, there was McGlinchey, there was Conroy, Scotty Cuthbert, Marky Miller, Paul McGowan, Simon Ferry, all these boys. Mm-hmm. And they were all above me in terms of age. And then I got released at 19 and they were all still there. And I remember thinking, my life's over here, I'm done. But it was the best thing that ever happened to me. Because see, by the time I was 21, I'd racked up 100 games, 150 games. And that helped me in my career, whereas, listen, they lads all had brilliant careers, there's no getting away from that, but I was then playing against these boys 3-4 years later and I'd had more games in them.
Aye.
Whereas if I'm still at Celtic and the reserves...
You're just fast forward.
If you're not going to play for the first team, which is so hard, that gap's... You need to be exceptional.
Aye.
Exceptional.
Exceptional and have a bit of luck on your side.
A bit of luck. James Forrest, for example, was kind of a year below me, but in my age group coming through, his bit of luck probably came when Lenny got the job. Because he loved him, because Lenny had him. Do you know what I mean?
Aye.
You hear the story about Kieran Tierney when you were there and different things. There's the luck. But again, then when you get that opportunity, you need to take it.
If you get a youth manager that's managing you, he gets the first team job.
Aye.
Something like Stephen Kenny. I'm friends with Stephen Kenny. He was Republic Ireland 21's manager.
Yep.
Then got the full job.
And some of these boys are.
Yeah.
He capped about 6, 7 or 8 of them.
You then have to take the opportunity.
You still need to take it. Aye.
But sometimes as a young lad, all you want is that opportunity.
Yeah.
You never know what you could do. Do you know what I mean?
Is there one rule in a game of football you would change?
Good question. Time wasting, mate.
Time wasting?
When you're getting beat. The old tactics, that drives me around the bend. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Throw-ins, taking 2 minutes to take a throw-in.
I bet you've told your players to do it as a manager.
Do you know what, mate? Do you know what I hate? No, listen, this is a true story. We were at Kelty at the start of the season.
Purist.
No, listen, you were there. So Cal, the kit man, Cal was a great boy. I went 1-1-0. And I was at the side of the pitch and the ball went out and he has to go into the bag to get the ball. The ball went out and mate, he's going in slow motion. So I'm catching him beside my eye and I'm thinking, you better hurry up with that. Because I think, this is the way my mind thinks, that if he takes his time, the ref will add it on and they'll end up scoring. So I had a wee bark at him. He should have used doing that. I was like, just give me a fucking ball. To be fair, we won 1-0 and after it, we were coming here and I said to him, Cal, I think you reap what you sow sometimes with that. You end up coming back to bite you in the arse, do you know what I mean? And he's like, no, fair enough. That's just the way my mind thinks.
Yeah.
Everybody would be like, slow it down. But
I'd be slowing that down.
Send the guy you're taking off at the far side of the park. All that stuff. It's all game management.
No, listen, I would use it if I was playing, but what I'm saying is, there's some teams who really use it, and they grate on you.
Atletico Madrid.
Aye.
Atletico Madrid. They're the artists of it. They are. They really are. Would you change anything, Tam?
Offside rule for me. So I would say that if any part of your body's onside, you're onside. Which I know they're trialling with UEFA at the minute with Arsene Wenger. So instead of
like it.
if there's a part of you offside,
Boys' arms.
aye.
I think it's goal.
It's a goal, aye. Because I think football, we're all fans. We want to see goals. See this, his toenails offside and all that, and they're chopping goals off.
So what did you say you would?
So if any part of your body's onside, you're onside.
It's a good shout. That.
Was that not always the case though? Back in the day, they used to always say give the striker the benefit of the doubt.
Aye.
Would that?
If it was close, you would give it the striker.
But then how's that fair then? If a defender's going to say, well, you know,
so the whole if you
back then used to
if all this bit's offside and like your foot's onside,
I totally understand that.
You're on.
Your foot could still be a big,
I know,
bit offside.
I just think that you want to see goals. So for me, I would change the offside rule.
I like it.
Something different.
Aye.
Right, Tids, we'll get some quick fire questions for you. Your boyhood hero.
Obviously,
I could probably guess this one.
Aye, probably. It was Larsson. Larsson is a 8, 9, 10, 11, do you know what I mean? It was brilliant for Celtic when he was top man, but again...
Against him a few, I was lucky to play against him a few times.
Was he top star?
Aye.
Did you feel that on the pitch? You know that way when you're in the tunnel?
You're in the tunnel. I remember in the tunnel at Easter Road with Hibs, and we had a young team at the time with Bruni and all that, and coming out, and Sutton comes out, and Hartson and Moravcik, and I just think, what the fuck am I doing here?
Proper men as well, weren't they?
Imposter syndrome.
Martin and Neil's team, remember they beat 4-0 up at half time or something at Easter Road once, and Moravcik scored a screamer.
That's right, he was left foot, in the top corner.
And it's real. But as soon as the game starts, you're getting fucking wired in. You want to make an impression for yourself. So, but I mean, he wasn't big. He was. I'm 5'10", maybe was similar size to me, but the good was there. Timing. He was. I think he's the best player that's played the Scottish football in the last.
2 seconds. I also had I love Paul Lambert. He was another hero. And then look, I was fortunate that when he was doing his badges at the time, he came and took my 15-16 team at Celtic.
What was he like at that?
He was still club captain at the time, but he was just that transitional period, going to try and be a coach under Martin O'Neill at the time. And he was great. He was good with the lads. And again, as mad as it sounds, but
that's amazing for kids that age.
What he took
Instant respect, didn't you?
What a player, mate. So good. Well, he won the Champions League, didn't he? But I just remember him being a really nice guy, very supportive of the lads, and he's probably getting more out of us because he's learning how to speak in groups and his coaching sessions, how he wants to play, and obviously had a successful career as a manager as well. So, yeah.
Next one, it wasn't so quick fire that one, was it?
I know.
Sorry.
Favourite memory going to football?
Probably now taking my kids to Celtic games. I enjoyed doing that because when we were younger, I grew up with my 4 brothers. We wouldn't always get took to the games. Back in the 90s, and it was difficult to try and get 5 tickets. And I used to go down and try and sneak in. And this is before I ended up joining the kind of academy stuff and look through the gate at Gate 2 and stuff like that. But now taking my kids to away games or any game of football really, but I enjoy seeing their faces and their reaction when Celtic are scoring or winning, and it brings back memories of when I was a kid.
Best player you played with and against in Scotland?
Playing
Playing with...
Stop kicking his foot and all that.
What?
I see you.
I certainly want that. Best player with... I always said... I played reserve games with him, but Paddy McCourt was unbelievable. A real genius. Hard to explain.
You must have liked him. Did you see them when you were there?
No.
You must have liked. He was a maverick.
Some of the goals he scored.
I remember.
And he was wearing copas at the same time.
I remember played Hibs at Lennoxtown and they sat about 6 of them down there. And by the way, I'm talking about chopped the goalie like 3 times. And I just walked away. He's a great guy as well. I love Paddy. Real good guy. Good to the younger lads. Jamesy Forrest, another one. Again, Jamesy, I always say this, the career he's had at Celtic is unbelievable.
Jamesy coming through as a kid though was incredible.
Frightening.
He really was.
Played against, was a hard one. I can't really... I suppose you could...
You sent a midfield players that come right up against you, you thought, fuck, he's giving me a down today. Really good.
Or you couldn't get near him?
Probably directly up against you.
You think I'm going to go and try and get close to him and he's just popping off and has the wee bubble around him?
I guess because we played against your Hibs teams in the Championship, didn't we? It's easy.
McGinn's. So how did you find?
McGinn and Dillon and yourself? Good side, real good side. You just had a wee bit of everything. You just could mix it. You were strong. You were physical. They could play rotations, and then when you go to your Ibrox and your Parkheads and your Scott Browns and a lot of good players. You know what I mean? I remember going to Parkhead with Ross County, Scotty, and we drew 1 each, which was a massive result for us. And again, Van Dijk's and that were playing, and Commons and Griffiths and Brown and I think Cal McGregor, that's some good sides. But I actually enjoyed. This is going to sound ridiculous, but see the bigger games, I actually found them easier. Tam, would you agree with that?
100%.
I always felt you got a wee bit
better in the bigger games.
I always feel you get a wee bit more time in the ball.
Aye.
Which blew my mind a wee bit, like because it was my first time in the SPL and got to Parkhead or like Pittodrie or Tynecastle, and I thought a wee bit. But then when they did come, they went. Aye. Does that make sense?
Aye.
They would go quick and then they'd just hit you quick. And the quality they had, they could blow you out the water within 10 minutes. So, there's been a lot of good players, and certainly kind of when I was in SPL.
What about in England?
Oh God, you threw me here now. Scotty, I don't know. I can't even think, mate. You've put me on the spot. You'll need to move on with this one.
Right, we'll go pick your 5-a-side team. Best goalkeeper
That I've played with. I've got me again here. Where have I been?
Derek Gatson, did you have him?
Big Gats, good shout. Big Gats. To be fair, I played maybe 300 games with Gats.
Aye.
Unorthodox, kicks the ball. You know, Jim Leighton used to kick it.
Make saves.
Make saves, mate. Big saves. Big Gats used to dig us out a hole. Big size 12s, big Dorito toe, man. It would, you know what I mean? Big quavers, it would go all over the place. But a real good goalie. I actually bumped into him last week. And again, he's probably the goalie I've played most games with in terms of all that, my career sort of thing. So I put Gats in goals. What am I playing formation-wise here?
Just a five-a-side,
Just
one defender.
Did you ever play Big Moggs in Rotherham?
No.
Big captain, centre half. Used to get his nose broke every 3 weeks.
Wes Morgan? No, Wes
No.
Morgan. The boy was Sheffield United.
No, another one. Another Morgan, but he's Craig. Is it Craig Morgan?
I don't know, you played with him.
Is it Morgan?
Just Moggs.
And then like that team with Ben Pringle and that, do you ever?
Ben
With Ravel
Pringle,
and that, they were good. I'll put Tav in there. I'll put Tav. Aye, for a short spell when he came on loan for Newcastle.
What was he like then?
What I will say is, and I always say this now, like after training every day, mate, he'd be out practicing free kicks and penalties. So see, when I watched him in the last 5, 6, 7 years, that didn't surprise me. Even like his finish last week at Dundee, great finish. But
Strikes a great ball, doesn't
oh,
it?
I remember Steve Evans used to bang a windy, get him in, get half the pitch. But again, then he wasn't really, he played full back, but sometimes he'd play high, wide right. I remember we played Port Vale maybe, me and him were centre mid one day. He'd be all over the place, but just enthusiastic, real good. But he's that brilliant career at Rangers, mate. Really good. He gets a lot of stick. And I'm not just sitting the fence, but they'll realise how good he was when he goes, because his consistency levels have been first class, and his goals and assists have been massive for Rangers.
The numbers.
Paddy McCourt will be Paddy.
Paddy McCourt. So we've got Derek Gatson, Morgs, Tav. Did you take Tav over Morgs?
I'll take Tav.
Right, so we'll get Gatson, Tav,
Paddy McCourt.
Paddy McCourt, another midfielder. Then we'll go with a striker after that.
Put wee James in.
Aye, I like that.
Put James in. Just gives you that wee bit of...
And your favourite striker?
Damn it, Manus. I love... There's been a few, but who I really, really enjoyed playing with, we had a great understanding, was Peter McDonald.
Aye.
Really good, mate. Really intelligent.
Great lad,
Oh, brilliant.
He's ages with me. I played
I was
boys
it.
club against him with Hillwood and that. And,
How was he then? Tam, was he?
a fantastic player. Great player.
That was my boys' club
Was
as well, Hillwood.
Hillwood?
Yep.
Aye, so I used to have right good battles with him.
Who's your boys' club?
I was Celtic North.
Who were you?
Up at Springburn. I was Bosco
North.
Bosco Juniors up Easterhouse.
Aye, Celtic North. I wasn't in West Park.
Is that the Red Ash pitch next to the Molly?
Sight Hill. I think that, I don't know if it's still there.
No, it's gone, aye. Do you know what I will say about Pizzo?
Cage, mate, oh,
What I will say about Pizzo, like, the ball could come in for a foul, you could bang it round the corner to him, it would stick.
Aye.
He would then come short, you could flick it longer, he'd go. But see if, like the third man run from midfield, see when it went into him and you made a run, it was always right on your path, whether it was off this side or off that side, whether it was a wee flip behind him. The amount of like goals we kind of contributed towards at Morton, even like set plays, I knew he'd run. You know what, we Larsson went at the front with a glance, so good at it. So it was just kind of a try and get across that first man. Loves a night out. Loves a night out. I was out with him last
every
night.
time I was in Glasgow and I was coming up with whoever it was, Hibs or whatever, guaranteed I'd bump into Pizzo. Cube or Tunnel or something. It was all the time.
Were you the trash days?
I was the original trash. It was
One before you get burnt down?
Tempo, I think it was.
I can't remember, Tim.
Tempo trash. Aye, I'm the OG.
Do you know who else was brilliant? Well, big Spinsy, big Peter Werrison.
I've heard that.
Really good, mate. Really. He used to... I remember playing Rafe Rovers away. It was one of my first games. And
Yeah, Geordie.
aye. Well, I'll tell you why. I put a cross in and he scored a header, but see as he's flicking it, he shouted Shearer. I swear, mate, he shouted Shearer and glanced at it. You get the goal and you shout, and he just ran away like that.
I love that.
Running it. He used to do it in training, overhead kicks and that. Shearer! Training. It was honestly, but what a guy.
Aye.
What a player. Again, strong as an ox. So good with his feet. His wee flicks, his wee headers. Played with a lot of good players. It was just, because you put if I had a wee think about it, there's probably loads of right good players you're leaving out, do you know what I mean? But they're just ones that probably come to mind.
If you weren't a footballer, what would you have been?
Really enjoy cooking, mate. I genuinely...
I'm playing the guitar.
I play the guitar. I enjoy playing the guitar as well. I was actually playing it this morning. bored time, just sitting in the house bored, mate. So I just
Shooting guitar.
I think guitar. How did you find to learn it?
just picked it up when I was going to Rotherham.
before I met my wife. Disclosure, I bought a guitar because I thought it would impress women. They come up with the flat, so they come up with my flat and, do you play guitar and all that? I would say aye, but my finger. I think Burns. Anyway.
So I taught myself. I just went and I bought one when I was doing Sheffield, and then just practice, mate. Practice. See, when I put my mind to something, mate, it's like hyper focused. Do you know what I mean?
Love to be able to do it. I think it's the best instrument to play.
I've done it a few times with the lads, and that knock out a few tunes.
Jam.
But I enjoy cooking as well, mate. As stupid as it sounds, I actually feel my mind's at ease when I'm cooking.
Yeah. A lot of people say that.
For bigger people or my family or whatever, Sunday roast and all that stuff, I enjoy that. So probably
If you're hunting as carrots, you don't start putting them into like 4 and a 3 and a 3. You're chopping them, no?
Nah, 3-5-2, mate, with the carrots now. Changing my formation.
Right, you're travelling in a car across America. Pick 3 legends from life, living or dead, that we'd love to be with. In any walk of life.
Any walk
I think you might have given them a bit of warning here. Asking them, these are quite hard.
Nah, that's fine. I really like stick to football?
No, anything.
No, but you know the one with Roy Keane and Neville?
All right, okay, yeah.
Roy Keane would be one.
Right.
And by the way, I remember, I've got a good story about this actually. Can I go into it quickly? It was one of his first days at Celtic. Danny Lafferty, the boys, was it me, him, Graham Kerry, and I think it was Paul Callaghan. And they were all Irish. We used to do the boots at Parkhead, and it was like a wee boot room just outside it. You know, the first team change room?
Yep.
I don't know if it's changed now. And Roy Keane's first day, and obviously he's a hero. And he walked by, and I think it was Danny Lafferty. He went, Keano. And mate, he turned back, and he went ballistic. He went ballistic. He's like, who the fuck was it? And I'm a wee wee Glasgow boy. I was younger than I'm just still like that. I thought, it's not me, so I'm fine. And he went, who is it? And he admitted it. And he went, don't disrespect me like that. He says, if you want to speak to me, my name's Roy. We all play for the same team here. And I felt my nappy. I was like, oh. But straight away, he had that presence, that aura. And then watching him.
Danny Lafferty was a good player, wasn't he?
He was. He ended up doing well. But Roy Keane would be one. I say Tommy Burns, mate. Tommy was a big influence as a young kid coming through, and you know, obviously when he passed away, he left a big void at Celtic, whether that was with the youth, whether that was with the first team, whether that was with the fans. And then a third one.
What musician, because you like playing guitar and that, somebody to play the guitar for you if you're driving?
I really like, what bands do I like? I like Stereophonics, good band. Obviously Oasis.
Liam Gallagher, would you take him?
Nah, not really, mate.
No?
Not in a wee bit. Not really my cup of tea. Who else? Give me another band.
Bob Marley'd be mine.
Aye.
I'd have Bob.
Louis Dunford, he's heard of him? Boy for London, sings that North London Forever. You know that Arsenal song?
I've heard the Arsenal song.
Brilliant, mate. I went to see him not long ago. He was first class. Who would I take? I would take, was it Kelly Jones, Stereophonics? Yeah. You can sit and play the songs.
Pick one song you'd never get tired listening to.
Good question. What's one of my favourite songs? I always sing Dignity, karaoke.
Deacon Blue?
That's one of my favourites.
I always sing that when I've had a few beers. Believe it or not, I don't overly love the song, but it's just because I've synonymous with probably singing it the last 10 years when I'm with the lads or whatever.
A favourite film or TV series?
Film was always Stand By Me when I was a wee boy. You know,
watched that in school.
Oh, one of my
You watched that in school, that was an amazing
Still
film.
watch it now and still get the same feelings, like out and about with your pals on the railway tracks. And
Never jump in the river again. We came out with the leeches and all that.
aye, so many good wee things on it, isn't there,
Aye.
that reminds you when you're young. So I Stand By Me is one of my favourites.
TV series?
Gomorrah.
Gomorrah, seen it, yeah. You seen that?
Always like.
Best series ever made.
You think so?
Yes. Yes. Ever.
Mine's with Sons of Anarchy, but then that Gomorrah probably beat it.
Gomorrah's, mate. Have you seen it?
I've seen it, yeah, I loved it.
I thought it was unbelievable.
Unreal. And subtitles.
See, they noticed they knocked the cast where they set it. They knocked it down last week in Napoli.
Did they?
Oh, did they?
Came up.
Oh, I dodge anybody that's not seen Gomorrah. You've got to see it up there with Sopranos.
Ah, it's amazing.
I argue with my brothers, but I wasn't massive with the Sopranos. I've got a short attention span, so see
Sopranos is brilliant.
I can switch off sometimes. I'm watching stuff and mess about. Whereas with Gomorrah, Entourage was good.
Aye.
What's your Entourage?
Aye.
3 words to sum you up as a person?
Depends who you ask, mate. I'll ask you. Right, we worked together for nearly a year or whatever.
3 words to sum you up. Got me in the spot now. I'd say intense.
Intense. In a good way? Oh,
Yes.
both ways?
At times. Well, again. I'd say intense, driven, and I would say funny.
Sarcastic.
I think they're funny.
Funny?
I think you get a funny side to you.
Aye, I've got a soft side.
Best holiday with your teammates?
We done Benidorm after we got promoted under Tom at Kelty. That was good. 4 days in Benidorm.
Tomo going off?
No, he didn't actually. He didn't. The rest of the staff went, but Tomo and Geordie, they ended up staying behind. I don't know if they were working or whatever they were doing, but I also went to Ibiza years ago with the Morton lads. Big Hardy and stuff like that. Peter McDonald.
Ryan Harden?
No, Big Martin.
Oh, Big Martin, Big Man Mental.
Big Martin, aye.
Is that his name?
That's what he get called.
Basically,
Aye. He was. Big Mark McLaughlin, remember Big Mark?
Aye.
Marco was there, Craig Reid, Peter McDonald, Willie Dyer. Good squad he's went. It was first class.
Aye.
Right, just to wrap this one up, the best concert you've been to?
Again, probably touching on my guess. I went to see Stereophonics, first class. Do you know who I really like? And I'm actually got to see him not that long, The View. You know, the boys with
Yeah, I
Andy?
remember The View.
Kyle Faulkner.
Yep.
He's actually playing at a hotel in Stenhousemuir, which my agent owns. So I'm got it's a wee private gig. So I'm going to that. I can't remember what it is. Maybe end of the month. Who else have I been to see?
Just me going to Oasis in the summer. You don't like Oasis?
Nah, I love Oasis, mate. I do love them as a band, but I don't know if I'd...
Were you waiting in the queue and all that when all the tickets came out and all that nonsense?
Who else went to see? Snow Patrol.
What's a queue? Did you hear that there? What's a queue?
Massive time.
I
Big
like
time,
it.
is it?
How'd you get tickets?
I just threw someone I know. Just through a contact.
Oh my God.
Right, of course.
Favourite Oasis song?
Cigarettes and alcohol.
Stand By Me.
Stand By Me. Morning
Stand
Glory.
By Me, mad, isn't it?
Morning Glory
Songs,
for me.
films,
Yes.
In fact, you know what?
Morning Glory.
Is it Whatever? Is that?
What If? There's a What If.
I can't remember. Aye.
I think.
Oasis is a class, though. Any other?
That's us all done. And listen, just want to say obviously thanks to Tam and a big thanks to our
Welcome.
special guest today, Michael Tidser. Thanks for watching.